text. She was asking me, and I
Grab your wine. It's time for Rosé All Day and Julie's a Mess, where we talk about current events and living in an intersex life. And now, here's Julie.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rosé All Day. This is this week's podcast with myself, Julie Mayfield, Just Julie, and it's a special episode this week. We are joined with the cast of Love, Loss, and What I Wore, which is going to be doing a staged reading next weekend, August 12th, in Savannah, Georgia, a part of the Savannah Readers Theater. And the performance will be at the Abode Studio on Skidaway Road, and tickets are $20. We do have a link to Eventbrite listed in our comment section if you're watching us tonight and you're interested in purchasing tickets. But we decided to do a roundtable meeting or meetup of the cast, and we are going to talk about the show and kind of talk about what we love about it. But to get us started, I'm going to go ahead and have Wendy start. So these are the ladies that I have been privileged to be cast with, and I'm going to let them go around and introduce themselves to you. And let's get started. Wendy?
Hello, I'm Wendy. Yes, I'm Wendy Bowers. I live in Savannah. I've been here 6 years. Not much theater. I haven't done much theater. All I've done is improv. This is my first time doing this.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yvette?
Hi, everyone. My name is Yvette Upton. I am delighted to be invited to be part of this show. The last show I was in was a while back. It was the Vagina Monologues. So when I saw that this play was described by a reviewer as Vagina Monologues meets What Not to Wear, I thought, I'm in. How do I sign up?
And Anita?
Hey, y'all. This is your girl, Miss Anita. I'm super excited to be a part of this cast. This is my second live reading. I'm getting back into doing theater because I'm super duper animated. So I thank God for Miss Bonnie for seeing what she saw in me. And I've been here for 2 years. And I'm super excited to be on this cast with these lovely ladies.
Great. And Rebecca, who's joining us from her lovely New York apartment.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I got involved through Bonnie, who I know through the Savannah Philharmonic Chorus. So this will be the second performance oriented work that I'll be doing in Savannah, and so that's really exciting. And I really love the play. It's a great group to work with. So it's awesome.
And we keep hearing, we're mentioning Bonnie. So this staged reading is directed by, I always mess up her name. Bonnie, is it Janine Teresa? Mm-hmm. And so she's kind of helming this project with us, and we're all super excited. So originally we were going to have a friend of ours join us, and we were going to do this discussion from a male point of view. A lot of the topics within this play, Love, Loss, and What I Wore, which was originally written in production by Nora Ephron and her sister Delilah, has to do with a lot of topics that women deal with on the everyday. Right? There's a great monologue that we all know that Anita does about a purse, right? And so a lot of things that women deal with and that we deal with every day is kind of what this whole production is about. And in a way, I think it'll be easy for women that watch the play or see the reading to be able to assimilate. However, men definitely would be on that outside bandwidth of what we're talking about in some ways. So Our friend Lavon had was going to join us tonight. He had to work. We're sorry that he had to work, but he has written some questions from a male point of view, or just questions that he wants to know about. So we'll be reading some of those as well. And then anybody that wants to ask questions in the comments section can do so as well. Hello, Jennifer Dunham and Charles Richardson and Rian Koto. So these are people that normally watch JustJuleigh, but hopefully they will enjoy it as well. So let's just ask, just to get started, now that we've been in a couple of rehearsals for the staged reading and we all kind of have a sense of our parts, what is something that really kind of draws you in to this production? Anybody can start.
I'll go ahead and start.
Can I comment? Okay.
Yeah.
Can I comment?
Every.
Oh,
You go ahead first, Wendy.
Wendy, you can go ahead.
okay. The thing that I came up, impressed me, or that really felt like I was a child, and this was the coming of age when you go to get a bra, when you go to, because my mother, she really didn't talk to me about that kind of stuff, or she wasn't kind of like, figure it out for yourself kind of, and that was really something that, that made me think.
I think before we let Rebecca kind of dive in, I think those are things that women go through. I didn't necessarily go through it, but those are things that you that are kind of aching. Coming from the past, it is very common that parents were not open about those things, and I think we see that in the play, right? And very much in those moments, even for Gingy, when she talks about her dad taking her to the department store to buy a dress when she was 13, he didn't know what he was doing. She had never been in a department store like that. I think when we talk about the bra monologue, I almost mentioned it in rehearsal. There was a store in California when I lived out in California called the Wizard of Bras. And it used to have a huge, like, theme park style bra on top of the building. Like, you're driving down the LA freeway and you saw this big white bra. And I remember asking a friend when I first moved there, what is that? And she goes, oh, that's where you go. That's where everybody in California goes to get measured for a bra. And I went, what? And she was like, yeah, that's kind of like a rite of passage in California. You take your daughter, you leave her in there, she comes out with a bra. And
You leave her.
They were like, they stuff you in and they figure out your cup size and they jiggle you around. And she's like, it's kind of like this aha moment. And that's what that kind of monologue reminds me of. And so it's funny you would say that, because I think back in the day, now we just walk into Victoria's Secret and say, I want them to sit up a little bit and be a little present for the boys. But are there other people in here that have had that experience growing up? Some of the older people in the cast, have you had that experience?
Well, I grew up with my grandmother, and so I had kind of an interesting generational gap with my friends who had younger parents. So it was a very different experience and much more similar to what Wendy described. Like, it was not something we talked about, whether it was bras or otherwise. So there were a lot of things, that I kind of had to pick up on my own, or were explained later than it would have been helpful, right? Like, I got some information. But I remember when we started reading this about the cast, I have no memory of going bra shopping. I'm sure I did, but it doesn't stand out of many things from my childhood. But I do remember being in a Victoria's Secret store as a young adult and having my size yelled across the store and being traumatized because it was so embarrassing, and it was not a very large size. And I was like, why would you do that? You're trying to sell me a bra. I'm not buying it now. So, yeah, I definitely can relate to what you're sharing.
I mean, imagine being on the other end of that when they yell across the store that they don't have one that fits you.
True that as well.
And then you walk out of the dressing room and all of the boyfriends and husbands are like, huh? I'm just kidding.
Just discretion would be helpful.
That would be nice. Rebecca, what were you gonna say?
Well, one of the things that really stuck out to me about the play, and I think we had talked about this at one point in rehearsal, where it's difficult to jump back and forth between some of the sad moments and the intensity of what happens, and then the lightness of the humor of the play. But it really, the clothing and the presentation and what it means to be a woman facing the world was kind of in those moments, those really sad, kind of almost dark moments, is kind of what spoke to me the most. There's the one scene where the woman has breast cancer and she comes across another breast cancer survivor who's in the hospital, who's saying, just look your best. They can steal your identity, they can do anything to you, but wear the best piece of jewelry and look your best. And it kind of speaks to me on two levels. There's some of the scenes where it's like women kind of have to look pretty no matter what. Like you choose between thinking and wearing the high heels. And then in those scenes, though, it makes me think about, with the breast cancer, how our presentation and some of our clothes are this really special, sacred thing, too, that we have a lovely relationship with and a meaningful relationship. And it's like part of your dignity and it's part of your pride. And so I thought it was interesting because they all kind of show a different aspect of our relationship to clothes and how we get through the world in them, which I thought was cool.
I think kind of focusing on that too, you know, the character Gingy that I play, she talks about at the end about how she allows her granddaughter to come in and play in her old clothes. And, you know, back in the day, a lot of women would put their old clothes that they didn't wear anymore in a trunk or in a box, and they would allow their grandkids. But now I feel like as we've grown, especially, you know, since the 70s and kind of I've grown up, grandparents and grandmothers are a little more apt to leave you personal belongings and items that absolutely you find make their way into your daily fashion life. And they are staples of what we wear. And you know, I'm talking about it and I'm thinking about the necklace that my grandmother left me. And I don't wear any other necklaces. I wear this, and that's I'll change all my other jewelry out, but I've always just worn this pendant. And I think it's funny how it shapes and kind of folds into our lifestyles. That being said, it looks like we lost Wendy and maybe she will come back in. That being said, let's go ahead. Lavon asked, what's kind of the best advice that you have been given in regards to fashion in your life, in your own lifetime?
I learned my fashion from my sister and my mother. God rest her soul. But I just know the best tip that I get is always dress up when you think you don't have nowhere to go, just in case, so you could be ready. So I always got into the mode of like just putting something on, and just, you know, looking presentable all the time. So, and then my sister always just dressed like a lady, and she had her own little flair and her own style, because I used to be like a plain Jane back in the day. And then as I kind of evolved, I kind of learned some tips and tricks from her and my mom and how their style was. And my sister was super proud of me. She said, "You good now, like, you know what you're doing now." You know? And that's what I learned, like, throughout the years. I would look at old pictures of me, and you know how, you know, we are worst critics. But then I look at me being older in my mid-20s, early 30s, and now I really evolved into the woman that I literally turned into my mother, but not in a bad way. And I know she's super proud of me, because like when some of my relatives see me, they say, "I see," well, my mom's name is Judy, "I see Judy in you." And that's kind of what helped me, just learning from people. And when I go to a department store or whatever, I pick out good items. Nobody's saying like, "Oh, why did you pick that?" You know. So that's what I learned from me. from my perspective, especially just being just a little Black girl and just trying to find your way, in life, and always trying to compete against the next girl.
Anybody else want to add to the best fashion advice they've been given? Thank you, Anita.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody? I think the best advice I ever was given about fashion was, you got to figure out what looks good on your body, and then run with it.
Mm-hmm.
And really, once you know what looks best on you and what you feel confident in, literally, you can find that pretty much in everything. And that's going. And then the other best advice I had was always make sure you have something in your closet for a funeral or a nice event. And it can be the same outfit, but you want it to be, classic enough that you could wear it to a funeral or wear it to a wedding. I think that's some of the best advice I've ever gotten. Anybody else?
I loved the advice that they have a whole section in the play about wearing black, and of course I accidentally said exactly that. And
at least
my
it's
mom,
not a turtleneck, Rebecca. At least it's not a sleeveless turtleneck.
exactly. Which I have plenty of in black in real life, including one that has cut off sleeves but has the turtleneck, which is another joke in there. So anyway, but my mom is the one that told me that black looks really good on you, and I always my grandmother, though, hated black. She always said, you can never wear black. You always have to wear color. She wants, whenever she passes, she wants everybody to be bursting with color, no one to wear black to her funeral. But my mom, on the other hand, she said, it's always very slimming and it looks great and whatever. And I've always taken to it. So that is my go-to. I have a million little black dresses. So
you can't go wrong with an LBG. Anybody up? Wendy, Yvette, any advice that you feel open giving to somebody that you've learned about fashion?
Well,
Sounds like Wendy's having some.
I agree with Rebecca. Just that you wear what you're comfortable in. You figure out what you're comfortable in. I remember when I was younger, and there was 5 of us, and there was not a lot of money, and we would get hand-me-downs from my cousins, and I was always so excited when they had nice clothes when the hand-me-downs came, because we didn't have a lot of money. My mother didn't work, my father was working, and so it was it was nice. I mean, it was nice when we got the hand-me-downs.
That reminds me of that line that Gingy says at the beginning of the reading, or at the beginning of the play, where she talks about her mother made all her clothes for her and her sister. And she was like, at one point, and then we all kind of go off and break up into the individual subtext of this discussion. But, at one point she was like, I really just wanted a store-bought outfit. You just get to that point. And you kind of said, we got hand-me-downs, right. And so that kind of reminds me of that, the juxtaposition of all that, right? And I think everybody that sees this play is going to have a different connection. That's what's great about it, is that everybody's going to have kind of a different understanding and connection to it because of our lived experiences. And then I think that kind of monologue pairs off into people talking about pantsuits and robes and kind of lays the groundwork for the production. Anybody else? We're gonna take another question from Lavon. I think we kind of covered 2 with that one because he asked a lot of fashion questions. Which outfit in your personal life came to mind when reading this play for the first time? So was there an outfit currently in your closet or from your personal life that the first time we read this play that you thought about? Anybody?
That is such an interesting question. And I was going to say no, but then I have to say yes. And that is, I love the stories about the women who wear boots. And I have a pair of black boots that are pretty standard, nothing fancy or a big fancy name, but I really love them and I feel very confident when I wear them and I enjoy wearing them. And one day I was wearing them to teach in like a kindergarten class or one of the classrooms I went into. And one of the little girls in the classroom said, "You look just like Beyonce." And I was like, "Oh my God, I do? Like, why?" And she was like, "Your boots." And I was like, "Oh, it's just the boots. But okay, I will take that and I will wear the heck out of these boots. And I will probably wear them to the play, even though it'll be 1,000 degrees. Because it just makes me I love those particular stories in the play, but I also just loved how she was so excited to share her love of Beyonce, and that is the only way I'm ever going to be compared to such a beautiful, talented, hardworking, amazing woman like her. So I will take that. I will take that and wear those with pride. So yeah, that's the one that stuck with me reading the play.
I don't have necessarily a favorite outfit or costume that I've worn in my lifetime or that's currently in my closet. I mean, I for me, everything that's in my closet I love, or it wouldn't be in my closet. Does that make sense? However, and I think for women that have been married before or have gone to certain events, they're always going to remember what they were wearing. I think that's kind of a big part of this. What I thought was kind of cool is I'd never met Bonnie before signing up to be a part of this production. And all she really knew about me was stuff she had read about me on social media. And yet the first time we read this production and what little I knew about my fellow castmates, I thought, how is this casting so perfect? Mm-hmm. Because you just made the reference to your monologue and the boots. You have that connection. Wendy's already shared a little bit. Like, and when we left, I thought it's kind of method acting-y for the, the method. Like, I'm a method actress, and I thought, how did she know us so well to put? I mean, I guess that's the sign of a great director. I just thought that was very comforting and warm in a way that we all fit. So that was just weird to me. Not weird, but like in a good way. She's watching this. I don't want to it was interesting. Whose phone's ringing? Just kidding. Okay. Anybody else want to talk about a favorite outfit?
I'm in my home office and it's the office ringing out, right?
Oh.
That's okay. Hey, Anita, while we have you talking about your phone, any outfit, I love your power suit, by the way. Any outfit that
thank you
out for you in your closet or in your life?
Man, this is a very I appreciate Bonnie for casting me on this, because I was just trying to make certain stories be my own. And of course I resonated with the purse, and then resonated with the bathrobe monologue. Similar, because my mom passed, so I don't. Yeah, it is kind of eerie, like when we got cast for this stuff, because I didn't have I don't feel no type of way about my stepmom, but I can relate as far as like my sister probably feeling some type of way about a stepmom or something like that, like why she got that on or something like like why she wearing that or something like that. So I was never that person that would be that cold towards somebody. I would kind of keep my, even though I do have times where I say things without a filter. But with that, on that monologue about the bathrobe, I wouldn't have been that bold to say that to my new mother, But as far as the other one, like I like the gang sweater thing, so I have like a go-to top and a go-to dress that I wear. And up under here is like my go-to tank top that I have on. And I said, why do I keep picking? So that's the fun thing about this. So I'm looking in my wardrobe and I've got all these clothes to choose from, and I always pick a certain thing. Like I have dozens of clothes to choose from. So as far as like getting ready for this, I have a lot of these blazers. And I said, what is it that I can just like do a little quick little pop collar, to be like, and that's kind of how I do it. So it was super cute because we're doing the clothesline monologues. So it's like, okay, I got black dresses, but I don't always wear black because I like color. You know what I'm saying? So for me to
Rebecca's grandmother, you love color.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me to do like a black dress, like I was told not to wear white. So I was that person like, don't wear white. I think we got a thing like that, like somebody don't wear white after this day, or
After Labor Day.
Yeah,
That's an old, like now everybody wears white all the time. I look really good in white. So like I'm slapping the white on whenever I can. And I'm from the South, which is where that rule originated from. So I feel that on so many levels because growing up, you would always hear people say, I can't wear white after Labor Day. And you were like, who's that?
I think in the South too, people.
right. So I'm learning to wear white now, versus wearing black or other. Like I love blues, I love turquoises, so I'm that person. I like all shades of blue or mustard yellow color. So I'm that type of person because I love fall. That's my favorite.
That also really works for you because as an individual, and we've gotten to know each other through the readings, you're very vibrant. So I would hope that you wouldn't be subdued in your wardrobe. I think that people tend to express, they use fashion a lot to express who they are, right? We talk about Madonna in Rebecca's monologue in the show when she leads in with that and what we all went as for Halloween. When you think about Madonna, some people think of her as just a great talent and a singer, but she really has evolved throughout every stage in her career, tied to the way she dresses and presents. Lady Gaga is also in that same kind of form now for a lot of younger people, right? And so you can literally mirror the levels of their career through how they present in fashion.
Yeah, it's super fun. Like to play in your wardrobe. I like it.
And I want to talk a little bit about your robe monologue. I know the first time we read it, I personally didn't understand if the stepmother had put on the robe of the previously deceased mother or if she just owned a robe that was similar. So I'd love to get everybody's kind of feed on that. Do you think it was she wore a robe that was left in the bathroom?
I think it was a trigger. And it just was like by coincidence. So you know how us as women, it's like I really don't think that it got thrown away. I think like we just make ourselves think that. I personally think that she just got triggered because it looks similar to her mother's. But it could be the other way around. It could have been hers.
I think I question that as well because I can very distinctly visualize the robe that's being described. Like it was a very common robe. I don't know if my grandmother had one or somebody I knew had one, but I could see it. And I'm not good at visualizing stuff, so I have to have seen it before to really like go, oh yeah, that's what that looked like. But I remember that being a very, very standard kind of robe during that time frame, 80s, I guess, or
there's
late
a great
70s
meme.
80s.
There's a great meme currently on Facebook of women from like the 70s and 80s in those standard pajamas and bathrobes. And the tagline on the meme says, this is what women were wearing, and these are the women that had 9 or 10 babies and their husbands didn't stray.
You don't need lingerie.
Like, what?
I agree with Anita, though. I think my impression was it was a trigger more than that it was her mom's robe. But I could imagine that would have been a really hard thing to experience.
So
I think there are other triggers throughout this play. I joke about it a lot because she does such a good job even in reading it. But the monologue that Rebecca has at the beginning of the play talking about her favorite dress, right? And this is a theme. We're talking about it now. This is a theme that carries throughout the whole show. I mean, the show is called Love, Loss, and What I Wore, and it's running next weekend, Saturday the 12th at the Abode Studios. The link for tickets is posted in our comment section, and it'll be at 7 p.m. here in Savannah. But let's go back to Rebecca real fast. How does that piece affect you? Because it is very much the story of a girl that's like, I had to share my clothing, and that was, she doesn't share it, right? You know it better than I think I'm paying attention to it when we read it. But talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, well, when you were asking, is there something that sticks out to you? I think the thing that stuck out to me was when I was a little girl, I was obsessed with, probably around 3 or 4, but I remember this as a memory. There was this little outfit I had that was like overalls, but it was little shorts and just a tiny little pink straps, and then like a white frilly thing underneath, and it had white polka dots on pink shorts. And I was obsessed with pink at the time. And I thought it was my Minnie Mouse outfit. I don't know why. It reminded me of Minnie Mouse, and I wanted to wear it all the time. And I was very, very attached to that outfit. So for some reason, it really resonated with me as something that came up. And I just somehow having like a sense of comfort around that outfit and an early sense of identity. I feel like it's like the very first thing you sort of are like, that's the thing I'm about, and that's what I like, and I like this color. And obviously that changes a lot over the course of your life. But what really sticks out to me about that monologue and the play in general, that I think is also a really beautiful theme, is our relationship to our mothers. And I think everybody probably has something that's a little bit complicated or really tender or whatever it is about one's mother. And they really explore that a lot. And in that piece, I think something that really speaks to me is just, oh God, it's so layered. But like, because there's the way the dad treats the mom, there's what the mom is struggling with. And I feel like the girl, she gets attached to the dress as part of her mother, and as something that maybe she was witnessed by her mother in, or whatever. And then when her mother is replaced and the dress is taken away, I think it's kind of like everything that I love and care about and hold dear and that's familiar to me and makes sense to me and shows me who I am, is being taken away. And I mean, that's very philosophical, but that's kind of where some of that comes from. It's just like, it's not fair. And it's like, I don't know. I just kind of, it just sort of feels a little bit like a forgotten child in a way.
But that's kind of the loss theme through the play as well, right? It's not just always going to be a loss of a marriage or a loss of a death. It's in some ways a loss of innocence, right? Yvette talks about in one of her monologues how she can't run around her dad naked anymore, and she's got to start dressing a little more buttoned up, and you can't just sit in your dad's lap like you used to be able, and you can't really integrate with your male siblings or brothers the way you used to. I think it's a loss of kind of everything as we grow up and move through life, and that's a kind of ongoing theme. That kind of feeds into my next question. As we've all kind of grown and our, I don't want to call it a fashion flair, but as our tastes have changed, maybe that's a better way to look at it. What is something you're glad that your parents, what's something your parents maybe used to dress you in that you thought, what were they thinking? Mm-hmm. And how have you kind of developed past that? Does that make sense? Does that question make sense? And while we're thinking about that a little bit and thinking about an answer, I'm going to throw a comment that Brooklyn Miss just said in the comments. She said, I learned a lot from that TLC show, What Not to Wear. Yeah. Right? We all know about that. And then, let's see. Hand pink waving. This is beautiful. Thank you. Oh, that's Bonnie. Hi, Bonnie. And let's see. So, but let's go ahead and go back to that question. So maybe what's something, Rebecca, since you're already kind of live and in the moment, not to put you on the spot, but is there something that you remember from your childhood that you're like, ugh, I can't believe they ever put me in that? And then
So there's probably two items. The first is that my grandmother used to always knit us sweaters. I'm sure a lot of people have had this experience. And she would put time into it, and they'd be very colorful, and they were never in fashion. And so I would get for Christmas every year, and I would have to, whenever we went to her house, I would bring it with me to act like I was wearing them. But that was the only time they were ever seen. So that's one item. And then another is that my mom is half English, half Swiss. And there's these dresses in Switzerland where they're from, and my dad has a picture of my mom and I on his desk at work, because we look adorable, to be fair. But they're like these traditional Swiss wear with like frills, and they're like brown with floral pattern, and we have these little hats and things like that. And I think at the time I thought I loved that I was dressed like mom, and I was so young and I was kind of like into it. But then I didn't catch on to what was fashionable fast enough to keep up with my mom continuing to buy me things that were along these lines, because I loved this particular type of outfit. And so there was an awkward period before I started taking control over my my wardrobe. But that's an outfit that I remember that's like one of those things that your family just puts you in for a photo op.
I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and so I always remember that you would get things at Christmas. You mentioned it, and then of course your parents would be like, "Well, you have to wear this." Do you know what I mean? We got it for you. And I always thought it was funny because Santa Claus would visit our house, and he wouldn't bring anything that you wanted. Like that. So Santa Claus would visit our house, and he brought practical stuff. And then like the gifts that you got from mom and dad were like things you'd asked for. And so I remember my older brother was always like, it's a little creepy because we would come into the room after Santa had visited, and everything Santa had brought would have been on separate like couches for us. And I just remember always coming down, and like my brother's couch was just full of like underoos and underwear. And he'd be like, it's a little creepy that Santa Claus is bringing me underwear. You're like, yeah. So like, I remember though one Christmas, and I think that's why it's tied to me. There's a picture of me sitting in a chair at my grandmother's. And in the 70s, the late 70s, people were mad about plaid. Like everything was plaid, a different color. And so there's a picture of me dressed in a onesie, and it's like red and white peppermint checkered plaid. And then they put like this weird Santa Claus hat on me. And I just am like, I mean, it looks more like a deterrent of you don't want to take our kid. We dress them ugly. But like, but then I'm also blessed because I'm a lot older than my sister and my little brother. And as they were going through the early 90s and late 90s, the fad was every mother wearing a t-shirt dress and putting your daughter in a matching t-shirt dress, and y'all all wore kids, and then you dress your son in matching shorts that matched the t-shirt dress. I was like, thank God I missed that fad. Like, because that's a little PTA for me. Anybody else want to comment?
I just have this one.
Well, I remember when.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Wendy.
I remember when I was real little. I remember in elementary school. I would have been in elementary school in the 60s, so I was a little bit behind you, Julia. I was before you, and we would have to wear dresses to school. We had to go all the way through elementary school, junior to wear pants to school until I was in high school. And I remember having these dresses that were just so ugly. When you talk about shirt dresses, they were like these ones that they were just ugly dresses. I mean, and the ones that came from my cousins, that was the nice clothes, we had to save those for when we went to church. So it was like I got to wear the ugly dresses to school. And Bobby's.
Well, don't you feel? I kind of feel like. Don't you feel like in the 70s and 80s, clothes that we wore to school were all about lasting. So clothes we wore to school were often felt like we were wearing burlap sacks, and were constructed to be like lasting. And then of course things you'd wear to church on Sunday or out nice were like nice, kind of like having, I guess, kind of what I would equate to the difference of having a formal dress as an adult in your closet, right? That you wear to conferences or formal events, and then just having your regular, like, everyday grungy kind of clothes. But I think fashion has definitely developed. We see it changing all the time, right? And sometimes I cringe a little bit. Maybe you do too, Wendy, when you see fads coming back from the past that you're like, oh, please don't bring those back.
Bell bottoms. I love the bell bottoms, and
I like bell bottoms.
Bell
bottoms can make you,
yeah, me too. Yeah, they're cool.
Yvette, Anita, any?
I was trying to think of a particularly horrific outfit, and I mean, I think they were all of their time, right? So looking back on them, they look pretty ridiculous, but in the moment, I think they were okay. My grandmother did not like me to wear anything that was particularly revealing, which, as we all know, going into juniors departments and stuff is pretty much impossible. But I remember that she was real conscious of skirt length and having to do your hands down to by your sides, and how far up was the skirt from your knee. I don't know if other people had this at their school, but that was a big thing. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to wear shorter skirts, and there were many pictures of my mother as a teenager wearing the short 60s skirts that I was not allowed to wear as short as that. And it was confusing to me. How could it be okay for my mother when she was the same age, and yet I can't wear the same thing now? But let's be honest, if I'd been wearing that in the 80s and 90s, the level of skirts we saw in the 60s, it probably would not have been great as a young teenager.
Talking about your grandmother a little bit, because that's a theme that we see ongoing in this production too, right? We talk about our mothers, as Anita had mentioned and Rebecca had mentioned. Do you think that sometimes life, do you think that our grandmothers sometimes see how they raised their daughters, right? Our mothers. And it's almost like in raising their granddaughters, or in having an influence in their granddaughter's life, they do this kind of mental thing where they think, okay, well, I couldn't do right by my daughter raising her, and I let my daughter wear all these things. And look how her life turned out. I've got to make sure my granddaughter doesn't go down that same. Do you think there's some of that involved, maybe?
Definitely. In my experience, my aunt and uncle were younger than my mom, so they were teenagers when I was growing up, and I called my grandmother Mama because that's what they called her. So they were in the house still when she was raising me, and I do feel like she made different choices with me. She was very, very strict with me, but I never felt like I always felt loved, and I always felt like she had my best interest at heart, even if I didn't agree with what was happening. And I don't mean like my life was not ruined. I was not traumatized by how she raised me or anything like that, but she was definitely stricter than my peers. And my peers were afraid of her. So when we went out, I was brought home first because they didn't want to mess with my grandma, who is not as tough, in my opinion, as they thought she was. But yeah, I do feel like she made different choices. With my own daughter and her paternal grandmothers, no, they let her do whatever they like. If she stays with them, she can do anything. How many ice creams did you have today? How much TV did you watch? How long were you on the game?
Well, I think all grandparents are kind of like that with their grandkids, but I just sometimes I think it's interesting and anybody else can chime in. Obviously, I bet you Anita has something to say about this whole topic, but just do you feel like people raise their first set of children, and then in raising their grandchildren kind of feel like they need to protect them more because maybe something didn't translate with that first set of parents? Anybody?
I think oh, go ahead.
I'm just saying it can go both ways. Like as far as like from a parenting perspective, I would say that my parents got soft with the grandkids as far as letting them do stuff in general, and that they were giving them more freedom than what I had.
Well, I'm talking more about just fashion though, because we were talking about wearing short skirts and stuff like that. So not necessarily like because I think all grandparents are going to let their look. My parents have grandkids and they're like, we love to feed them and junk them up on sugar because then we can send them back home. So I don't mean like that. I just mean like.
Right.
She talked about the short skirts and the fashion, and then she was like, but she was really strict with me, but she allowed my mother to wear really short skirts in the 60s. And then you have to, on some level, go, well, is that because that's what everybody was wearing in the 60s? And she didn't feel like she had control as a mother over. It's going to lead into another question because I want to ask everybody in here within our cast, who do you think was the girl that wore one thing out of the house to appease their parents and then changed when they got to where they were going? I feel like it's probably Rebecca, but that's just because I'm not going to throw myself under the bus.
I was that kid. I didn't want to. I didn't want to be because I was just so sheltered, right? So because of me being sheltered, I became rebellious because I just kept getting told no. So I was the person that did wear short skirts and stuff like that. So the boys can see me. I developed at a very young age and all of that. But what I was saying as far as like people being like able to express themselves differently, like me personally, I'm still old school. Like I don't agree with the new trends that the little girls have right now. So if I ever get blessed with a daughter, I don't know how I'm gonna be because like I don't like it. Like I look around and like these babies ain't wearing too much of nothing, but that's all they got to wear. You understand? As far as like their wardrobe, like I feel some type of way with certain swimsuits. That's just me. Like when I see swimsuits and then we're at the age of like the pedophiles are really out and the trafficking, like that's just from my perspective. And then a lot of times people are developing at a very young age now. So especially from my culture, I feel some type of way because I'm like, you got people that's thinking about, okay, well, I should be able to be free and be me. But I'm like, but at what cost though? Because I don't want to see you ending up missing because you want to be free. You know what I'm saying? And it's very, very controversial. And sometimes I just kind of be quiet about what I think about that because in my family, I got set down as a teenager because I was doing certain revealing stuff. And because I was a teen mom too, so it's like, okay, well, I still need to still be a lady because but I just was doing it for attention. And that's why I think a lot of people are doing, of course, if you want to show a little cleavage, a little style, you know what I'm saying? That's just what it is. Like, and this age, it's not going anywhere. Obviously, if you want to be a sexual and you talk about Madonna and all that, like, that's when everything was evolving. Like, it was okay to express those. But it's from a being a protective person, it scares me at the same time. But I get it at the same time. You know what I'm saying? I get it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like what's a healthy medium? Like, what's a healthy balance to express yourself without things?
Yeah, I think about while you're talking about this, I used to think about in the 40s and the 50s, they had finishing schools and you were literally taught what to wear as a woman and how to dress and how to make sure that you were not, because of your skirt length or because of other things, how you were not supposed to be so forward in your dress. And now it seems like you go places and that's all there is forward fashion. And I actually saw a link today. Not to call out any company on here because that's not what this chat's about, but they literally had a little girl dress. I posted it on Facebook, and it's supposed to look like the body of the dress is a church, and it's got windows across the front of the dress. And when I saw it, I thought, yeah, it's cute because the skirt has like flowers all over it. However, I don't have children, but my first thought was, I don't know if I'd want my little girl to wear a dress that has windows across her torso, because every little boy is going to approach her and be like, oh, let me look in the windows. What's underneath there? And I just, on some level, felt like it's supposed to be cute, yet it's very leading, and it would be putting my young daughter or whoever else wears it into a category of someplace I wouldn't necessarily want her to be or to be thinking about at 6 or 7 or 8. But fashion is always changing. We see that ongoing theme in this production. We've seen it in our life. I think I would be lying if I wasn't honest and said that when I got the current body that I have, and I got my breast upgrade a couple of years ago, I wanted to dress sexier, but only because I recognized my prowess in that moment, and how my sexuality in a way could bring me more, right? Could get me into the door for a better job, could certainly put me in a better position in a male-dominated world or a patriarchy, right? The Barbie movie just came out, and they talk about that. They talk about the patriarchy that we as women are all subjected to, and how we deal with that. And there's a great monologue in that movie, if you haven't seen it yet, that American Ferrera, is that her name? Yeah. That it's her characters, and she's telling Barbie, we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to be this, we have to be that. We can't do this too much of this because we still have to come across as soft. You can't be too sexy because you'll come across as a slut. And in watching that monologue, I thought, well, that's exactly what we're talking about in Love, Loss, and What I Wore. We talk about, you can't wear that perfume, you smell like a bordello. You can't wear that because you'll look like a prostitute, right? And those are themes that we have heard our whole entire life. And yet, to fit into the narrative that's being pushed by other people, we have to wear the boots that we wear. We have to wear the flats that we wear. We have to wear the dresses that we wear. We have to, what are your thoughts on that? And we only have about maybe 7 or 8 minutes left. So let's go ahead and get last thoughts in from each of us, and maybe talk about what you're hoping for next weekend on Saturday, and we'll kind of round out this show that way.
I would love to just hop in with a very simple kind of tie-in, just to kind of about what you're talking about, which is that something that spoke to me in the play and kind of in life, and is the idea that women so rarely get to own their sexuality for themselves. There is the level in which you want to express, like, I love this body I have, or I love this body I have now, or like, I'm embracing myself. And that is talked about a lot, but I don't think it always even translates, because I think at the end of the day, we often end up still somehow doing it for someone else, to be seen by someone else, and I think that hesitation with young girls to like sexualize them or encourage them to think that that is currency that they have or to jump into. And of course, we are always spending that currency, even if it's just charm or whatever. But I think that's the hesitation, is like, I know that you aren't going to think about this by yourself. It's not just you expressing yourself at 6 years old. So I don't want people to have windows to your body yet. You know what I mean? So anyway, I think that's a cool thing in the play.
Right? And I think as adults, we absolutely play. And I had said this on TikTok earlier this week. I feel like one of the words that we have lost in society is saying no, and standing up for what we will accept and what we won't. And we're in so much of a world right now where we're allowing everybody else to dictate what we do, what we eat, what we wear. Right? And instead of standing up and saying, no, you should not be making that. I'm not going to stick my little girl in that. I'm not going to put my boy in a shirt that says, watch out, ladies, Like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to buy it. We're not going to do it. We're not going to stand up for it. Right. And we don't do that enough anymore. We don't stand up and say, I don't agree with that. And I wish you wouldn't put that out. Right. Because in so many ways, clothes are what we wear. There's a great song from Aida, the musical, that was done by Tim Rice and Elton John, where Princess Amneris, the character in that show, she sings a song about what she wears. If you haven't heard it yet, I'm telling Bonnie this because she dedicates a song to us each day on Facebook, and this would be a great one if she can find the link to that. But it's called, I think it's called How I Dress, and she sings about she looks good in this and that and this, and she likes to wear this and that and that. And I think that's very important in owning that. But I think it's also important to say, I'm not going to, think about the Miss America pageant. For all these years, a big part of that pageant was wearing a swimsuit. And then a few years ago, they said, why?
Right.
You don't need to wear a swimsuit across the stage to know that you're physically fit and in shape. That has nothing to do with the merits of what this organization offers to young women. We shouldn't be walking. And there are women that are like, look, I love wearing a bathing suit on stage because I'm confident and I worked really hard for that body. So it's a two-sided argument, right? But they eventually ended up taking it out of the pageant because they said that's how the pageant started, but it's not really, it doesn't weigh on what a girl needs to move forward in life, how good she looks in a bathing suit. Other thoughts before we round off the conversation? Thank you, Rebecca. Any other thoughts?
Talking about body image. Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
Talking about body image, when I was, and my maiden name was Jones. My maiden name was Jones, and they called me Bones Jones because I was really skinny. So I mean that affected me. That affected my body image. I mean, I'm not skinny now, of course, but I was really, really skinny, and that was hurtful when I was, and I think that affected me for
a long time. That probably affected you.
Yeah, it did. It affected me a long time. Yes, it was. I guess it was a kind of bullying.
I mean, that would be a form of bullying, I think. I think a lot of people know this, and just to throw this in, because I haven't said it before, for me being in this play, I'm intersex. And so I grew up, I was raised in the male form. And even though I developed breast tissue at 12, back in the days, they just said that you were lazy and that you had male boobs or moobs. When I first read the play, I didn't connect to the bra story because I didn't have to wear a bra. I could have worn a bra, but I mean, that wasn't part of my story. And so it was interesting kind of hearing my fellow castmates talk about that and even read that part of the play, because that is strange territory to me, right? However, as a woman, and then later having to transition just to save my life, being a part of this cast, this is only the second production that I've gotten to do as this vessel as a woman. And so for me, and I identify on some levels, even just reading Gingy's parts, because I think of my mother and I think of things that my mother and my sister went through. But I also think of things that I've gone through with her, even in the second part of life. I think there are parts of the play that will resonate with anybody that is open to allow that piece to resonate with them. I don't think it necessarily has to be just a female thing or just a male thing, right? I think people that are willing to identify will identify. And I think there's a lot in this production that leads to that. So I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think it's fun, and it's very thought provoking, because, like we were saying earlier, you start bugging up, like laughing really hysterically, then you like, what? Like you're like, did she just say it? And so I appreciate being a part of this because that's our life. We can have our ups and downs. It literally can happen in the same moment. Like we can be experiencing something. It'll be very lovely one moment, and then it'll just go downhill for me. So I appreciate that, and that's like the realness of it. Because I was thinking like, afraid that they get this when we're, presenting these different monologues. But as far as displaying what we wear and how that shapes us as community today, I think that's beautiful. And I know this was back in the day, saying like in the 90s or whatever. But it's still prevalent of the community and so on.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited about it. And I'm thankful that I could be a part of it. Just to give my listeners and do it.
Well, I think we're going to round out the show because we're right at about the hour mark, and I know people have things to do. We're going to go around the cast one more time, and I want y'all each to say one word, right? One word. Describing this play that will get people into those seats next Saturday, August 12th. So for everybody that's watching in the next couple of days, tickets are $20. They can be bought at Eventbrite. If you go to the Eventbrite site, you can just type in Savannah, Georgia, August 12th, Love, Loss, and What I Wear. It'll pull it up. You can click on Buy Tickets. You can also click on the link that's in our comment section right now. Tickets are $20. It's at the Abode Studio next Saturday at 7 p.m. We're all excited about it. So going around the room, we can start with Anita. One word that will get people into those seats so that we can read this wonderful production for them.
Epic.
Wendy? Captivating. Good one. I'll go. Let's see. Engaging. Rebecca?
Evocative.
She's thinking about Madonna. Yvette?
And empowering.
That's a great one. So we had evocative, empowering, engaging, epic, and Wendy, yours was again?
Captivating.
Very good. Well, we are going to go ahead and end the show. I want to thank the ladies. That have joined us tonight. The show is Love, Loss, and What I Wore. There is our official poster right there. It gives you all the information on it, so you can pause this video if you need to find it. And then the link is available in the comments, once again, to buy tickets. Being produced by the Savannah Readers Theater and directed under the guidance of Bonnie Janine Teresa of the Savannah's Reader Theater. I do want to put up one of her comments real fast because I just saw it in the comments section, and she said, "Get ready, ladies." She says, "I see a production of the vagina monologues in our future. Do you agree, Yvette? Should we do the vagina monologues?"
I think there's so much similarity in this story that we'll see. I think that's a good idea.
This is a great idea. Let's do it. I'll talk about my new vagina. So it's my old vagina. That's a whole nother story altogether, though. And those that watch this podcast, thank you for joining. You can find this podcast on the YouTube channel JustJuleigh, as well as linking into Spotify or wherever great podcasts are heard. And so that's going to round us out for the evening and for this episode of Rose All Day. I do ask the cast to go ahead and not log off. We're going to run the last promo bump and then still stay in the green room and we can have a quick little conversation. And thank you to everybody that commented and joined us this evening. We hope to see you next weekend in Savannah on August 12th at Love, Loss, and What I Wore by Nora and Lavon Ephron. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you soon.
For more content, follow JustJuleigh.com. That's just Julie, JULEIGH.com. Thank you to our guests, and thank you for joining us this evening. Join us next week as Julie tries a different rosé.